everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today's episode is going to be still featuring Dead by Daylight, and we're still going to be talking about the killers, but we're going to be talking about their base perks. First, those 3 perks that you see on the screen whenever you go click on the killer's lore, that's what we're going to be diving into today, and we're going to be focused on the base level of them. We're going to combine them as a trio, and then give them a grade from worst to best, A through D, and of course, like I said just now, we're going to go from worst to best. Now, big heads up, guys, this is just my opinion, and a C plus and B plus basically mean that there was just something that was off that prevented them from being to the next tier, and of course, an A plus is going to be the best killer perks in this video. So, to kick things off, we're going to go right into tier D, and the first killer that we're going to talk about and their perks, unfortunately, and this may shock some of you, is actually going to be the Nightmare. You know, the Nightmare is what was one of my favorite killers in this game. At the same time, I don't even use any of his perks because they're just not very helpful, except for Bloodborne, but Bloodborne is kind of by circumstance. So let's talk about his perks, actually. The first one he has is Fired Up. This one is an up and down one. See, I'm just going to pretty much go into deep detail with you and just talk about each one of them. Each time a generator is completed, Fire Up grows, and you gain at least a 3% stackable buff that grants a speed bonus to picking up, dropping, vaulting, and damaging gens, breaking pallets, for the rest of the game. Don't get me wrong, that's not bad, but at the same time, it doesn't really excite me. There's not much to it. Sometimes you don't even really break pallets, you just go around them. It's just one of those perks I feel that are semi-useful, but could be a whole lot better if they had a little bit more, like maybe a higher stackable percentage. That's how I feel about it. So for that reason, it didn't really catch my eye. Next up, we have Remembering, which this one is not too bad. I'm not the biggest fan of Obsession perks. Each time you hit your Obsession with a basic attack, you basically increase the opening time of exit gates by 4 seconds, up to a max of 8 seconds. The Obsession, remember, is not affected by this perk, and you can only be obsessed with one person at one time. In hindsight, this is a really good perk, but my only problem is that if I basically hit you twice, that's it. I don't even need to hit you anymore. And you can just, I guess do whatever you can do after that. It doesn't seem full and just feels like I should be able to hit them more and then it still open up. That's like a little nitpick I have with that perk. Of course, remember, fellas, we are talking about the base perks, and they're probably better on higher up. I'd have to look at like my tier 3/4 perks, but for me, it doesn't entice me. So for that. Then, last but not least, I was just talking about recently, Blood Warden. Blood Warden is probably like one of the only real redeeming perks that the Nightmare has. Consider the fact when the exit gates open, when this perk is activated, the auras of survivors near the exit gates are revealed to you, and if you actually do wind up hooking somebody while the exit gates are getting opened or open, it'll basically call for the entity to block both exits for 30 seconds. Now, if you have No One Escapes Death, which is like a basic in-game perk, which I'm not going to be talking about in this video, but this is useful. But if you don't, this is more of a circumstance perk, and it doesn't really help you if you're not hooking anybody, because there are going to be some games, we've all been there, to where like we haven't hooked anybody in the game, they would have 5 gens done. So for that reason, and for all these reasons, the Nightmare's perks don't seem the most beneficial and helpful to them in getting that edge. So for me, the Nightmare is the first person to get the D tier on this list. Up in tier D, we have the Demogorgon. Now, his perks, well, let me actually just go right through them for you. That way you'll understand what my frustrations are with his perks. So, number 1 we have is Surge. Putting a survivor into the dying state with a basic attack causes all gens within a 32-meter radius to instantly explode and regress. This applies an additional regression of 8%, and can be triggered once every 60 seconds. This is the only redeemable perk I can say that really jumps out to me and goes, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. This works. This is helpful. The other one, let me tell you how frustrating this one perk is. Mind Breaker. While repairing generators with less than 50% to repair progression, survivors are affected by the exhausted effect. Any existing exhausted effect statuses timers are paused while the survivor is repairing a gen. Okay, that's not too. And then we have after ending repair action, survivors are again affected with the exhausted effect for 1 second. What is 1 second going to do? That's like, oh my god, I stubbed my toe. Let me keep running now. It's like it's there's so many things wrong with this perk. So many things wrong. I don't even know where to begin. I mean, why can't it? First of all, it should be 75, less than 75%. That'd be more helpful. But then on top of that, if they're doing a gen, then their other exhausted effect ends, and the one that you have is literally 1 second. What is 1 second going to do? It's like if you blink your eyes, boom, it's already gone. Or oh, let me just walk real quick and then I'm just gonna start running again. It just it's so bad, and if I had a tier F, this perk would have made the Demigorgon a tier F. But anyway, I digress. Next up is Cruel Limits. And every time a gen is completed, all windows and vault locations within a 24-meter radius from the completed gen are blocked for all survivors for the next 20 seconds. You see the aura of vault locations blocked by Cruel Limits for the duration. I don't mind this perk. It's just, for starters, I mean, why are you? I mean, it's great that they can't vault. They're just going to run around. It's not like it's like it's going to break a pallet or something like that. I get what they tried to do. I just Maybe if it was longer, I would have put the Demigorgon at a C. 20 seconds isn't too bad. I feel like half a minute would have been more efficient. And then again, this is one of the things, like I said, folks, it is my opinion. And maybe I am nitpicking, maybe I'm not. It just, throughout a game, 20 seconds really is nothing. And at least I mean, yeah, I guess I could say it's better than the 1 second perk, but at the same time, for those two reasons, I'm sorry, Demigorgon. I love playing with Azu, but you're going to also be put into the Dear T category. And sorry, bud, you snooze, you lose. So just to recap the killers that are in Tier D, it is the Demogorgon and the Nightmare. So with that being said, let's go on to Tier C. Things off in Tier C, it is going to be the Trapper. And the Trapper's first perk is called Unnerving Presence, which basically means survivors within his terror radius have a 10% chance of triggering skill checks when repairing, healing, or sabotaging. Triggered skill checks, success zones are reduced by 40%. This is a very big chunkage. 40% is a lot, and that's kind of why I like this perk. I mean, the 10% chance of triggering it is whatever, but the fact that they have a 40% more of a chance to not hit it, not only can kind of alert you to where they are, but it does kind of add a little bit of pressure because I don't know if you guys have actually ever been like with this perk around, but when it actually does pop up, it is the world's little slimmest little skill check in the world, and I kind of like that about it. So that's kind of one of the reasons why he was actually given a C for this. But his next perk is called Brutal Strength, which it destroys pallets and walls, and generators 10% faster. Um, this perk is very iffy with me. I didn't really care for it. 10% faster is great, especially if you're in like a high speed chase. But overall, it was this is a basically average, below average perk. And last but not least, agitation. While transporting survivors, your speed is increased by 6%, but your terror radius is increased by 12 meters. I kind of guess this is all right. I didn't really know how to feel about this perk for quite a while until I've really seen it in action. If let's say if there is a survivor that's kind of not too far, but also not too close from you, it has that perfect like medium range to you. If that 12 meters kind of does help because it's like, oh my god, he's near me. How's he near me when he's transporting somebody? So that it can also add a little bit of fear to it. But overall, these three perks I really want to say complement each other quite well, considering how the trapper playstyle is. With those bear traps, and we all have seen the memes of him constantly getting clunked on the head by pallets. So I think this perk, I think these perks really go hand in hand and can um, um averagely help him out. I'm not saying it's anything superb, but it ain't bad enough to make it a D. So it's kind of one of those just hey, it's just not too bad. It's not too hot. It's just right. So for that trapper, you get a C. We have the shape, and the shape's perks are quite more all obsession based and all time based. So for me, this was a really challenging one to even put into a category because he could literally range from a B, C, and D. So it was very tough to actually categorize them, and I'll explain why it was too. But let's go through the perks. This is a very long, lengthy list that I've got here for notes for him. Basically, the first perk he has is Save the Best for Last. Basically, you become obsessed with one survivor. You earn a token for each successful basic attack that is not dealt to the obsession. Each token grants a stackable 5% decreased successful basic attack cooldown, and you can earn up to 8 tokens. Hitting your obsession, though, with the basic attack will cause you to lose 4 of those tokens. You can no longer gain tokens if your obsession is dead, You can also only be obsessed with one survivor at a time. All right, that was a mouthful and some. So basically, trying to just recap that and make this in layman terms, don't hit your obsession. And I know for us, it's kind of difficult. We're like, well, what? Aren't we supposed to torture the obsession throughout the game? That's what I was meant to believe for a very long time. But if you hit your obsession, you lose basically 20% of your decreased successful basic attack cooldown. Remember, if let's say if you actually do have 8 tokens, which means it's 40% of a, it's basically like you're recovering mighty quick if you miss. With that, it's kind of this perk. Like I said, it's so up in the air. A lot of these perks are very controversial because it's so hard to put them in a placement. Um, Again, it's just one of those things I kind of like scratch my head on. I kind of I would like to leave this to you guys, but again, I'm the one making the video, so it's kind of like. Um, Overall, I mean, this perk isn't too bad. It's not too great. I mean, if you like not attacking your obsession and only focusing on 3 other people, it's kind of hard to get your evil within up. But we'll talk about that in a later video when we go overall throughout everything. So yeah, I'm kind of scratching my head on save the best for last, to be honest. But next up is play with your food. You become obsessed with one survivor. Every time you chase your obsession and let them escape, you receive a token, max of 3 tokens, by the way. Each token increases your movement speed by 3%. Each offensive action spends 1 token, and can only be obsessed with one survivor at a time. Now, don't get me wrong, this perk is actually quite good. Especially the fact that you can keep gaining tokens and gaining tokens. Again, as long as you chase your survivor and you let them escape, which kind of is more of a hindrance unless they're going to lead you to other people. It doesn't really do that much, so I don't. Again, it's one of those things I don't even know how to feel about it because it sounds good, but on paper, then when you're actually using it, it's kind of like, well, this is kind of pointless because if I'm just chasing you all game, chasing all these tokens, and then every time I hit somebody else, I kind of waste and I have to come back to try to find you. It's more like you're doing ring rat, like a big old circle, and it doesn't. You don't get anywhere. So I don't know how to feel about that one. And Dying Light is the last one. Basically, what this means is you're obsessed with one survivor. Your obsession gains a 33% action speed boost to unhooking and healing other survivors. Now, don't get me wrong, that's to the obsession. You're basically giving your obsession a 33% speed boost in those 2 categories. And each time you hook a survivor other than your obsession, if alive, gain a token. If the obsession is alive, to all survivors who are not the obsession get a 2% penalty to repairing, healing, sabotaging speed for each token. Remember, you can only be obsessed with one survivor at a time. This isn't too bad. I kind of like the fact that it kind of tells you, hey, hook everyone but the obsession. Yeah, that's not too bad. I mean, that 2% penalty isn't too bad either. It's just with these perks, I feel like they combat each other because 2 tell you to like, oh, chase the obsession, and then the other one is like, oh, well, you can't hit your obsession. So those 2 kind of go together. But then this Dying Light perk kind of counteracts save the best for last and play with your food in a way of just like, oh yeah, so just keep hooking them, but you're also gonna give the obsession a boost. And no perk do you ever want to give your a survivor a boost, at least in my opinion. So it's such a hard one to put this in. I kind of had to put him at a C because I don't really I don't think I don't think it's D worthy, but it definitely certainly isn't B worthy to me. And it's kind of one of the things where it's like it's up in the air. So for that reason, sorry the shape, you're just too weird and unfigure outable. So you're getting a we have the Oni, and his first perk that we're going to be talking about is called the Zanshin Tactics. And basically, what that means is that the aura of pallets, breakable walls, vault locations are revealed to you within a 24-meter range. When a survivor is damaged, the Zanshin Tactics become inactive for 40 seconds. So, with this, I kind of like this perk. The only gripe I have with it is I feel like it shouldn't become inactive at all, kind of, because all you're doing is seeing pallets and breakable walls and vault locations, which kind of help you out, which means, hey, give us killers some advantages. These survivors are nasty and mean and trolls. So we really do need some advantages. And so if they were just to, take away that like 40-second, little thing, I'd probably add a B. But yeah, the Zenson Tactics one isn't too bad. I actually kind of like the fact it's within. I think it's within a sensible range. I just wish like I said, that 40 seconds was maybe reduced to like maybe 10 seconds, maybe 20, something a lot shorter than 40. Next up, we have the Blood Echo perk, and pretty much when hooking a survivor, all other injured survivors suffer the hemorrhage effect. and until healed, and the exhaustion effect for 45 seconds. So Blood Echo does have a cooldown of 80 seconds, and honestly, I really like this perk because that hemorrhage effect status is brutal, brutal. And the fact that they're also exhausted for 45 seconds, it's the one perk, like I said, if it just had like a 70-second or 65-second cooldown, this would be like an A plus perk individually, this Blood Echo. But yeah, there's two really, really good perks. And I feel like what really holds it back is just the like I said, the cooldown or the inactivity for both of them that kind of hurts them from going further. And last but not least, we also have Nemesis, a survivor who blinds or stuns you using a pallet or a locker becomes your obsession. Anytime a new survivor becomes the obsession, they are affected by the oblivious of status effect for 40 seconds, and their aura is shown to you for 4 seconds. Killers can only be obsessed with one survivor at a time. Now, again, another really sharp perk. He would have been my C plus candidate, but there's one character that we haven't mentioned yet that does beat him out for, but he has some really good perks. I feel like the one thing that really does limit him is the fact of just how long the cooldowns are with the first two perks. Because Nemesis overall is a really good perk itself. The fact that it can bounce back and forth between survivors who think they're gonna be trolls and like stun you all day or locker rush you is pretty freaking awesome. And it really does get them thinking, oh god, now I really got to rank, now he's gonna come for me. So because of that, uh, Oni, you're getting a C. I really wanted to give you higher, but I realized I really couldn't. But Oni, you're getting the C, man. Welcome to tier C. Up is none other than the Hillbilly, and the Hillbilly's perks go like this. The first one we're going to talk about is Enduring. Basically, what this means is that it reduces the duration of pallet stuns by 40%. This can actually be a massively big help in the middle of chasing somebody. And let's bounce that, as we just talked about the Trapper with his brutal strength, 10% faster compared to 40% of pallet stuns. I'm going to take the Hillbillies perk here for this one. So I don't know about you, but to be able to constantly chase people at a 40% quicker rate because you're breaking pallet stuns, and then you can go right back to chasing them in a somewhat more efficient way. That's a pretty good perk, to be honest. So I'd say it's B worthy, but it definitely is a good perk to have in your toolkit. Next up is going to be Lightborn. This is a perk that I feel very wishy washy about for multiple reasons. I'll tell you why. Basically, what Lightborn is, it's your resistance to blindness is increased by 60%, but your recovery time from blindness is increased by 50%. Now, I know, you guys are probably going to say, "Oh, well, Bill, it's going to go hand in hand. You can't get one and not the other." I get that, but I mean, for it to be 60% and then have it to be increased from it by 50%, it's a little bit too much, but I could see like 25. I feel like that would make more sense. And I feel like this is kind of one of the perks that kind of hurt the Hillbilly from possibly going to tier B. It just doesn't seem worth it to have. I'd rather just oh, I'm stunned, then keep chasing again, because yeah, it's increased by 60%. That's not too bad, but at the same time, it's kind of like, oh, instead of like 6 seconds, now it's like 9 you have, but then you also have to recover for like 12. So it just doesn't, for me, it doesn't add up. It doesn't really weigh properly, and I feel like it's more leaning to the side of the increased recovery time from blindness than anything else. So for that reason, it kind of just hurt the Hillbilly stock a little bit. Then last one is we have Tinker, one of my favorite perks of the Hillbilly. Basically, what this means is when generators are repaired to 85%, their progress makes something trigger a loud noise notification, and you're given the undetectable stats for 8 seconds. 8 seconds is quite a little while, and I've actually heard this perk multiple times throughout me playing with the Hillbilly, and it's kind of come in clutch. It literally is the difference for me of getting a 2K and then a 4K. Basically, if you don't know what that means, instead of killing 2 survivors, now I'm going to get a merciless because I'm killing all 4. Especially when there's one generator left, you can kind of tell if they're gen baiting you, and now that little clink will always happen, and it's kind of useful. And there really is no like no timer like cooldown, so it's a really good perk to have, and it's a really good perk you want to have in your toolkit as well. It could definitely save you some time of going around generators that no one's even working on, and it kind of will spot them out for you. So for those reasons right there, the Hillbilly in my book is getting the C. Like I said, it was just that Lightborn perk that kind of hurt from getting to a B. But if it was like a little nerf that they took out the blindness increased by 50%, I probably would have put him at a C plus or a B. But for that reason, sorry Hillbilly, but you are still a C. We have the Spirit. And the Spirit's first perk is called, ironically, Spirit Fury, which basically means after breaking 4 pallets, the next time you are stunned by a pallet, the entity will automatically break it, but you will still suffer the stunned effect. Here's my thing. If this is my major gripe with this perk. I get that you kind of should, but it just kind of looks weird. And I feel that if we've already been hit 4 times the pallet, why can't we just not like, oh, okay, like, maybe like a quick 2 second, like, huh, and then keep going. I feel like that would be better, but to still do the whole, stunned effect, I just, at that point, don't even break it. I'd rather break it myself. I mean, I get it's meant to, like, oh yeah, hey, now you can kind of keep in chase. At the same time, it's still a slight hindrance at the fact, oh yeah, I just have to take this now random stunned effect while it just kind of broke from thin air. So for me personally, it's more just like of a gripe with this part. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I just feel that if the enemy's going to break it, I should still be protected from even taking the stun effect. I feel like that would have been better, but hey, that's just me. Anyways, next up we have a hex perk called Haunted Ground. Pretty much, this perk is basically two trapped hex totems spawn, and when either one of the two are cleansed by a survivor, all survivors become exposed for 40 seconds, and that the other of the two, the remaining hex totem, will immediately become dull. So that means there is no more, like, hex perk anymore. So that perk kind of goes away after that. But this is a perk, in my opinion, that I believe is meant to be cleansed, and it kind of makes sense because that means all survivors for 40 seconds become exposed. I mean, you could, if you're really really good, you can probably take out 2 people within those 40 seconds and then hook them, and because they wanted to be, trolls or the gurus and take out a hex totem. So for that, I kind of like this perk. It's not too bad. I mean, I said I'm not the biggest fan of hexes, but it's not too bad, to be honest. Then next up we have is Ranker, which pretty much you're obsessed with one survivor. Each time a generator is completed, your obsession sees your aura for 5 seconds. Each time a gen is completed, you see all survivor locations for 3 seconds. Once all gens are completed, the obsession is exposed, and you can kill your obsession. The killer can only be obsessed with one survivor at a time. I like this perk, and I would have put her in the D category, but here's what stopped her. What stopped her for me was the fact that if they could put it down to maybe 2 to 3, if they would have put it down to 3 seconds, I would have been completely okay with them seeing your aura. But 5 for me is a little bit too much. 5 I feel is a little bit unfair, actually, that they could see for 5 seconds. So for that, I that's why it became a C and instead of a B. But if it was 3 seconds, I'd be like, absolutely, this perk is wonderful. But because of that small little thing, up, we have the Deathslinger, and his first perk we're going to be talking about is called Gearhead. Basically, after hitting a survivor for 2 times with your basic attack, Gearhead activates for 20 seconds. While Gearhead is active, each time a survivor completes a good skill check when repairing, the gen will be revealed by a yellow aura for as long as it is being repaired. So now, here's the thing with this perk. I love the second half of Gearhead. But the first half, after hitting 2 survivors with your basic attack, which means you're basically downing somebody, Gearhead activates for 20 seconds. If I'm downing somebody, right, and let's be honest, so sometimes when we try picking people up and trying to put them on a hook, it can take about a good 5 to 10 seconds, depending on how they wiggle. So you're telling me for only 10 seconds, basically, or maybe even 15 at the max, right? I'm going to be able to somehow get to that said generator and either regress it or like attack more people. It's one of those perks where like the first half sucks, but the second half isn't. So it's like literally, if I were to cut this in half and just leave the first part of that, it would literally be like a D. But the fact that I guess it's just like my own gripe with it. It's but to be honest, that 20 second, I can see if it would be better, and he would have gotten a higher place here, and like at least on a tier, if it wasn't, if it was like for 30, maybe 45 seconds, that I could see. But overall, it just Gearhead just didn't get the job done for me. It's kind of one of those perks I'm kind of like, whatever for. His next perk, though, that we're going to be talking about is called Dead Man's Switch. Basically, what that means is that you're obsessed with one survivor, sorry, and after hooking the obsession, Dead Man's Switch activates for the next 35 seconds. While activated, any survivor that stops repairing a generator before it is fully repaired causes the entity to block the gen until DMS effect ends. Affected gens are highlighted by a white aura, by the way, and the killer can only be obsessed with one survivor at a time. Now, this perk is quite interesting. The fact that it does activate for 35 seconds is kind of cool, and the fact that it does, like, if a survivor does stop repairing for some random reason, the gen is shown by a white aura, which is pretty cool. Although I feel like if a survivor, if you're not near the killer, why are you going to stop repairing a generator? It's kind of one of those things that kind of like scratches my head. I mean, I think the idea in thought was cool, like on paper, but actually seeing it in play, it's not the most effective. Um, yeah. So for that reason, we're just gonna go on to the next perk. His last perk is actually a hex perk. It's called Retribution. Any survivor who creates, I mean, that's like who creates, who cleanses. Sorry about that, folks. Who cleanses a dull totem will suffer from the oblivious status effect for 35 seconds. If the hex totem is cleansed, including this one, the aura of all survivors are revealed for 10 seconds. Now, this is probably my most favorite perk that he has because it's basically telling you, hey, don't cleanse a doll because you're going to suffer from the oblivious status effect for 35 seconds, which you really don't want to have that on you. And to be revealed for 10 seconds, all survivors, because you want to be a hero, just don't do it. I actually like to pray. It really does seek out for those who want to get some cheap little boldness points. I can't say that I'm not a victim of doing that myself. I do it all the time. It literally is there to punish players like me who are when they're surviving to be like, hey, we're going to come and get you now. So with that, you better duck, run, and cover because we're going to come for it within those 10 seconds. I really do like that perk. And the fact he's got the harpoon gun, even better. So, yeah, the Deathslinger is this overall C in terms of his perks on this tier C list is going to be the Huntress. And for her first perk, we're going to be talking about the Beast of Prey. Pretty much what that means is after gaining Bloodlust tier 1, you are granted the undetectable status until you lose Bloodlust, and you also gain 30 more percent blood points for actions in the Hunter category. This actually isn't too bad. I love the fact that you can gain more blood points. I kind of find it kind of funny that you're going to be chasing somebody and then all of a sudden you kind of go like rogue or incognito, and then you're kind of then undetectable, even though they could probably still see you. If they don't, that means you kind of lost them, and then you're going to be trying to throw a hatchet at them and hope that you hit them, which is interesting. So this perk is kind of one that kind of makes me laugh. It's kind of like funny when you think about it. It's like, shouldn't I be undetectable before I hit Bloodlust tier 1, and then when I do hit it, then I should be. Yeah. Either way, you guys, I digress. You guys get what I'm saying about it. So we're gonna go on to the next perk. Territorial Imperative. Survivors' auras are revealed to you for more than 3 seconds when they enter the basement, and you're more than 32 meters away from the basement's entrance. Territorial Imperative can be triggered once every 30 seconds. I kind of like this perk because it kind of tells you who's gonna be in the basement. But it's also gonna be for 3 seconds, and that's if they're 32 meters away. If you're more than 32 meters away, by the time you actually probably get to it, they're probably gonna be already gone. And I'm pretty sure the only reason why they're down is because you hook somebody in there, or they're gonna be down there trying to get an item from a chest. That's the only two reasons I could think someone would be in there. So for those reasons, I don't really like Territorial Imperative. It doesn't do the trick for me. I mean, 3 seconds is nice, but overall, I feel like it should be if you're closer, not farther away from it. But hey, that's me. I didn't make the game. I'm just going over what they made. Last but not least, this is a hex called the Huntress's Lullaby. Survivors receive a 2% regression penalty when missing any skill check. Each time a survivor is hooked, Huntress's Lullaby grows in power. 1 to 4 tokens are, this means anywhere from 1 to 4 tokens, time between the skill checks, warning sound, they do get a warning sound, and the skill checks become shorter. So that means the warning sound is shorter, and their skill checks are now very slim. Then when it hits 5 tokens, there is no skill check warning. So this can kind of toy with the survivors, but at the same time, I feel like it'll take probably way too long because if you're not hooking anyone, it doesn't really help. I mean, that means you got to hook people at least 4 to 5 times, or the 5 times at the minimum, to get like the full effect of this hex, and that's if it's not cleansed by that time. So for that, yeah, she barely made a C. Like she was one of the people I was thinking about putting her at D, but she barely made the C because the Beast of Prey is kind of what got her out of there. It's just overall she was saved. Let's put it that way, she was saved. Folks, is the original OG himself, the man who got an A plus for his power in the last ad video we had, and that is going to be none other than the Doctor. And the doctor makes tier C because of these three perks, and we'll pretty much go through them again and tell you why. So to kick things off for the doctor, it's going to be overwhelming presence. And basically, what this means is that survivors in your terror radius, their item consumption rates are increased by 80%. Now, this one I actually kind of like a lot, believe it or not, because of the fact that, well, I mean, 80% is a huge number. And if you have like a red key or a map or things like that, and I know I said I didn't want to talk about add-ons, but the perks kind of make me have to talk about them, and then the survivor stance. So if you do hear me talk about them, it's because it's really a perk that goes towards that. So as much as I don't want to, I kind of have to, and I've got to take my analysis as that. So like I said, going back to overwhelming presence, I really do like this perk because that means their tools are going to wear out. That means they'll be having to search into chests. They're one of those chest fiends, always have an item on them. And not only does it take them away from the generators, it's going to put them to searching for kind of meaningless stuff. So it works. It actually works in your favor. Then next up, we have monitor and abuse. While in chase, your terror radius is increased by 8 meters when you're not when you're not in chase, your terror radius is decreased by 8 meters, and your field of vision is increased by 3 seconds. Field of vision gains don't stack, by the way. But this field of vision one is actually, I love anything that increases field of vision, I'm not going to lie. Because, let's be honest, in first person, being a killer, it can be difficult, especially when people are pulling the swiggity swoop, don't take my boot moves on you, and going around in like a 360 circle way too fast. It can be hard. So to have that 3 degree increase is awesome. Literally, it's wonderful. So for that reason, I'm also like he was a close contender for C plus, by the way. But next up is going to be overcharge. When damaging a generator, the next survivor interacting with that gen is faced with a tremendously difficult skill check. Failing the skill check results in an additional 3% gen regression. The succeeding the skill check results grant no progression, but it also prevents the gen explosion. So it doesn't explode and it doesn't grant them any progression. This is more like a psychological perk, but overall, the one reason why I couldn't necessarily give the doctor a B, even though I really wanted to, is his first perk, overwhelming presence. Don't get me wrong, monitor and abuse and overcharge are really, really good. But due to the fact that it's more of a circumstance perk and more of if they have items, it's harder to really put that into a category. So this perk can be useful whenever there is an item, but when it's not the most efficient. So because of that, I kind of have to give it a C. And for the Cannibal, later on, you'll see why it gets a different grade. But for the Doctor, I'm going to give the Doctor a strong C here. Last but not least, in Tier C, this killer will be getting our inaugural C plus. I know it feels like we've been in Tier C for quite a while. It's probably because we have, and well, the Hag is going to be the killer getting the C plus due to her perks, and I'll tell you why. Her first perk is called the Hex, and it is called the Third Seal. Pretty much, it hinders one's aura reading ability. Hitting a survivor with a basic attack while the Hex totem is active applies the blindness effect to the last 2 survivors that have been hit. Last as long as the Hex Totem is standing. So it lasts as long as the Hex Totem is standing, which is pretty awesome. And overall, I can't really complain with this, but you'll kind of see why she wasn't a higher tier, but we'll get to that later on. Next up is another Hex perk called Ruin. It affects all generators repairing progress. While a generator is not being repaired by a survivor, it will immediately regress repair progress 100% of the normal regression. This Hex Totem will last as long as it's standing as well. Another really good perk, you know that one that everyone hates with the generators? That if you stop doing it, you're going to lose it. If you keep doing it and you don't get hit those great skill checks, oh well, this perk really does come in handy, and it is a pain. It can make the game last a lot longer until they actually find where it is and take it out. So, good stuff there. And last but not least, Hex Devour Hope. When a survivor is rescued from the hook at least 24 meters away, Devour Hope receives a token. 2 tokens gain a 3% haste status effect 10 seconds after hooking a survivor for a duration of 10 seconds. I know it's kind of confusing, but the haste status effect lasts for 10 seconds after hooking a survivor. And so it'll last again for 10 seconds. That's basically what they were trying to reiterate. Then when you get to hit up to 3 tokens, survivors will suffer the exposed status effect, which is awesome. And then to 5 tokens, you have the ability to kill survivors by your own hand, which is really, 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 really awesome. But overall, you guys are probably wondering, hey, those are really great. Why are they in tier C? And my thing is, in the game that I was getting content for you guys to see of the hag, I don't know if they'll actually come up. I'll have to like really look back and see if I want to add that in there. But all 3 of my hex totems were cleansed, and then I was left powerless. As great as these are, I could only give her a C plus because it's because of that reason that literally if they can all get taken out and then boom, as great as they are, they're gone. You don't even have them anymore. So due to that, I had to put her at a C plus, and that's kind of what prevents her from being a B, in my opinion, is the overall fact that hey, that's great that you have hex, but you don't have any actual perks after that. So there's nothing for her to fall back on besides her power, and we've already explained how her power was a D in the last video. So yeah, because of that, she gets a C for this one. Cap all the killers in tier C would go like this. So we have the Hillbilly, the Shape, the Huntress, the Oni, the Spirit, the Doctor, the Deathslinger, the Trapper, and last but not least, the person getting the C plus, the Hag. So to kick things off in tier B, we've got the Wraith, and his first perk we're going to be discussing is called Predator, which basically means scratch marks left by survivors will spawn slightly closer together. This perk isn't too bad. And of course, it's going to be useful in every game because it isn't going to be going anywhere without it, because you're going to need scratch marks to kind of hunt these guys down. And it's not like some other perks that we've discussed where it's based on items or blah blah blah. You guys know what I'm saying. So overall, Predator itself isn't the greatest. It isn't the worst. It's one of those I feel like just average. Like, okay, thanks for making them close together. I guess it's a little bit more of an increased like advantage because I can now firmly walk in one direction and find them. Uh, sure, it's one of those weird perks. Kind of scratch my head. Like, okay, I guess thanks. But next up we have Bloodhound, which basically means fresh blood marks are considerably more visible than normal blood and can be tracked for 2 seconds longer than normal blood. To be honest, after playing with it, I'm pretty sure in the video you'll see if when I hit somebody, that blood stuff, it is a pool of blood that sits there. It is the most visible thing. You can't like miss it. It's that visible. So yeah, I actually really do like Bloodhounds. A lot easier to like kind of track by blood, just in case they want to be like snarky and think, oh, I'm gonna like run around in a circle and then run 2 different directions and then run completely. So it's like mess them up with the scratch marks when they have a whole bunch of blood that's gonna be dripping all over the place, making it a lot more viable to see them. Then, last but not least, it is Shadowborn, which basically means your field of vision or field of view is 9 degrees wider than normal. To be honest, I love this perk. Like I said before, I love any field of vision perks because of just how useful it can be. It gives you more of an edge, especially since we're sitting there in first person, where survivors can kind of turn and rotate their whole camera. In third person, it's kind of a viewing advantage. So that means we can see more of the corner of our screens and can kind of help us out sniffing other survivors who like to hide in those sneaky little corners and think that they're slick. Now we kind of have somewhat of a chance to catch them and see like a little bit of an arm or like a clothing or hear a grunt or things like that. So I love Shadowborn, probably one of my most favorite perks next to Bloodhound of the Wraith, and it's because of how well structured his perks are that he does get a B. Congrats, Wraith, you're a B. Here in tier B is going to be the Pig, and the Pig's first perk is called Hangman's Trick. Basically, you gain a notification when a survivor begins sabotaging a hook while carrying a survivor. You see the auras of any survivor within 2 meters of a hook. Once upon a time, before they had the actual like rework for the toolkits, this would have been a really great perk. I would have actually put it at an A. But honestly, this perk is kind of pointless nowadays because of the fact of, well, I mean, literally, all it takes is 2 seconds for them to literally, oh, I'm going to put my little toolbox here, and then it's just going to drain the whole hook without me having to complete a skill check. Before, you actually used to have to do skill checks. I kind of prefer it that way than the newer way. But yeah, the whole thing of that perk, it just doesn't really. It's kind of pointless nowadays. And you're probably going to be wondering, well, why would the pig be a B then? It's because of the other 2 perks that kind of give her that like platform and launch her up to be a B. You see, here goes Surveillance. Any regressing gen will be highlighted by a white aura. If regression is interrupted on a gen, it is highlighted by what the yellow aura. Noises created by gen repairs are audible at an additional 8 meters. And to be honest, that is a solid perk. I actually really like this perk. It's one of the more favorite ones to have is like a third or fourth slot. Um, so because of that, that one to me is an actual B. Like I think it's a really good perk. The fact that you can actually hear gens at an 8 meter additional rate is awesome. The fact that when regression is interrupted on a gen, that means it's now yellow, so you already know where they are. And plus, you can. Well, we'll get to the powers later, of course, and do an overall review of it. But that's another solid perk. And then on top of that, um, when it is regressed, you see a white aura. So you have three different colors between the gens that are still there, being red, the ones that are being worked on because they stopped being regressed at yellow, and then the ones that are still regressing at white. So you kind of can have this whole color platform to know where to go throughout a game to really see who's doing what on the gens, and it's an overall solid perk. And last but not least, here for the pig, you have Make Your Choice. When a survivor rescues another from a hook, or at least 32 meters away from you, Make Your Choice triggers and applies the exposed effect on the rescuer for 40 seconds. This perk does have a cooldown of 40 seconds. So, to be honest, the moment it's there, to have to wait less than a minute to redo it is pretty freaking awesome. At that point, you kind of chill, sit around, apply the reverse bear trap on them or Jigsaw's baptism, as they call it in the game, and then put them on a hook, and then just kind of go on your merry way. And within 4 seconds, you'll probably have the perk activate again. It's a really solid perk. I really like Make Your Choice. And overall, that's what kind of makes her a B, is the fact of how good Surveillance and Make Your Choice is. And even the Hangman's trick, it's a C for me because it still alerts you of any survivor within 2 meters of a hook. So that's why it was a B and not a C. So congrats to the pick on being a B. Next up, folks, it's going to be the Ghostface. And his first perk we're going to be talking about is I'm All Ears. Basically, what that means is any survivor performing a rushed action within 48 meters from your location will have their aura revealed for 6 seconds, and it can only be triggered once every 60 seconds. So, to be honest, this perk isn't too bad. I mean, I kind of like the fact that it does reveal them for 6 seconds. I feel like this could be a little bit more useful for this for a little bit longer, because let's say if you are like at 47 meters, it's going to be kind of low-key kind of pointless for you to even go over there. But and overall, I think the thought here was it was interesting and it was good. I just feel like it doesn't really equate to how useful it could be. So next up is Thrilling Tremors. Basically, what this means, after picking up a survivor, all the generators not being repaired for the next 16 seconds, well, actually, that are not being prepared. Let me rephrase it. That are not being prepared will be blocked by the entity for the next 16 seconds. There you go, a lot better. Basically, affected generators are highlighted by a white aura, and this perk can be activated and triggered once every 100 seconds. So this is kind of nice if you're trying to be a troll and be toxic. I mean, you could really do some damage here with Thrilling Tremors. I really like this perk. I'm going to give it an A for that one. So, the I'm All Ears is but like the Thrilling Tremors is pretty good. Next up, we have Furtive Chase. You're obsessed with one survivor. When your obsession is hooked, Furtive Chase receives a token. You can get up to a max of 2 tokens. Each token decreases your terror radius by 4 meters while in chase. When a survivor rescues the obsession from a hook, the rescuer becomes the obsession. You lose all tokens if the obsession is sacrificed or killed. The killer can only be obsessed with one survivor at a time. This is kind of similar to like the Onis, but a whole lot better from like hooks instead of being hit with a pallet. Overall, I do like Furtive Chase as well because the obsession game keeps continuing. You can keep hitting people as long as they don't die. And this is pretty darn good. The fact that it constantly decreases your terror radius. I like it. It's pretty OP. And so far, the Ghostface itself does get a B for me in terms of their overall perks. I think Furtive Chase, Thrilling Tremors, and I'm All Ears go quite well hand in hand as a God's combination trio. So with that being said, Ghostface, you're in tier D. I mean, not tier D, tier B. Haha. I almost got you guys. You got to keep you on your toes. Last but not least, the killer getting the B plus in tier B is going to be none other than the Plague. And her first perk that we're going to talk about is called Corrupt Intervention. Basically, what this means is the 3 gens furthest located from you are blocked by the entity for 80 seconds at the start of the trial. The affected generators are highlighted by a white aura. It's actually a pretty good perk. I would actually give this a solid B because, let's be honest now, covering 8 gens is quite difficult. So the fact you can only have to worry about 5 at the start for 80 seconds is nice, and it also kind of shows. It also kind of tells survivors, hey, you're gonna have to go to these for quite a while, unless you want to be sitting here doing nothing and probably having a crow on you for a little bit. So it is an overall good perk. And then next we have the infectious fright. But basically what that means is any survivor within your terror radius while another survivor is put into the dying state will yell and reveal their location for 4 seconds. Basically this means you can kind of stop people from either body protecting or possibly trying to stop and throw a panel down, or not a panel, a pallet, or break a hook. The list goes on and on. So that's you kind of have someone around you, which is kind of useful, especially when they want to be slick and sneaky and think they're going to mess with you. So it is a pretty good perk. Then, last but not least, we have Dark Devotion, which means you are obsessed with one survivor. Hitting the obsession with a basic attack causes the obsession to emit a terror radius of 32 meters for 20 seconds. You are undetectable for that duration. The obsession hears the terror radius for the duration as well. Here's the thing. That means you give the survivor your terror radius for 32 meters for 20 seconds. And you know what that means? They're gonna, if they're running to their other teammates, they're gonna be running from them because they don't realize that the person has the terror radius on them, and that means you're undetectable. Can you imagine if you have Vile Purge and you're undetectable? That is a nasty combo. But we're not here to talk about powers, but I'm saying it is a really nasty perk. And I would give this one an A plus perk individually. It is nasty. So for that reason, the Plague does get the B plus, and you're probably wondering, well, why doesn't she get an A? Honestly, this may be a little bit nitpicking, but I feel like the Infectious Fright should at least be there for about 5 to 6 seconds. I feel like 1 extra second would be a lot more useful than 4, because 5 is always a better number. But yeah, that's maybe it's just nitpicking, whatever. But yeah, the Plague gets the B plus. To recap, all the killers in Tier B, it goes like this: the Wraith, the Ghostface, the Pig, and then last but not least, of course, the person getting the B plus, the Plague. So to kick things off here in Tier A, it is going to be the Cannibal, and his first perk that we're going to talk about is called Knockout. Basically, dying survivor auras are not revealed to other survivors when they are standing outside of a 32-meter range, which is a pretty good perk. In fact, then it's going to really kind of distort everybody for where they die. Actually, all you're going to hear is a scream and not know where, especially if they're outside of that 32-meter range. I feel it's really good for a base perk as well. It gets the job done and can also apply some very big fears within the survivors. A good psychological perk as well. So next up, we have Barbecue Chili. After hooking a survivor, all other survivors' auras are revealed to you for 4 seconds. When they are further than 40 meters from the hook, each time that a survivor is hooked for the first time, gain a 25% stackable bonus to all blood point gains up to a maximum of 50%. The blood points are only awarded post-trial. So overall, Barbecue Chili is a really solid perk. I do like this perk. And they are revealed to you as long as they're not in a locker. It seems to be every time I found someone in a locker, their auras were never revealed to me. They were hiding. So it is a very good perk, although I feel like with the lockers, it does kind of negate it a little bit. So I just want to point that one out there. And the next one is one of the ones where I had to debate this with a couple people a couple times, which is Franklin's Demise. I don't like having to talk about add-on perks that are meant to break add-ons, as I said. And I remember saying this in the early part of this video, why I had bring this one up again. Franklin's Demise basically means your basic attack makes the survivors drop their item on impact. The lost item is damaged in the fall, but it also loses 0% of its base amount of charges. So, I mean, overall, this is if a survivor has an add-on, which is why it was kind of hard to really judge this perk. It's kind of one of those that's nifty to have just in case. I mean, give or take, someone's going to find a chest. So, I mean, I guess you can kind of bank on that. But it was very hard to put this one. I'd have to give Franklin's Demise a nice C because of its just overall, a circumstance. It's one of those, again, a circumstance perk, which is kind of the reasons why I couldn't put the Cannibal at like an A plus, and it's honestly one of the reasons why I was thinking about putting it at a B, but it's because of Barbecue Chili and Knockout that really kind of lifted the Cannibal to an A, and it barely hit the A tier. So the Cannibal should be breathing his lucky stars for that, because yeah, it wasn't the most. It made it by like a thin hair. But with that being said, the Cannibal is here on tier A. So next up, we have the Clown, and his first perk is called Bamboozle. Your volt speed is 5% faster. Performing a volt action calls upon the entity to block vaulted locations for 8 seconds. Only one vault location can be blocked at a time, blocked for survivors only, and it does not affect pallets. So that's the one thing that I just want to make sure I got out there. So for 8 seconds to have a specific vault location blocked can prevent looping, which is one of the reasons why he actually got up here, because none of these perks really do prevent looping, but this one actually does. I do like the fact it makes your volt speed 5% quicker. And on the Clown, who's a former track athlete, by the way, not only is he actually one of the fast killers in the game, that gives a 5% boost as well. So bravo, I'm liking it already. And then the next perk we have is Chlorophobia. I believe I said that right. Forgive me if I said that wrong. Which means survivors within your terror radius have a 30% penalty to healing progress speeds, which is pretty nifty because not only does healing take long already, but the fact that it takes even 30% longer is awesome, which means they're going to be sitting in the same spot long enough for you to go slice and dice. Then next up, we have Pop Goes the Weasel. And basically what that means, after hooking a survivor, the next gen you break is instantly regressed by 25% of its total progress. Normal gen regression applies after damage is done. This perk is active for 40 seconds after a survivor is hooked. That means within 40 seconds, run to a generator and make sure you damage it. And yeah, just break it, do something. This perk is actually really good. I kind of wish that they had a longer time frame for you to use this perk. That's kind of one of the reasons why he didn't get the A plus for me. But overall, it still is a very well done perk, and the fact that he can also stop looping to a certain degree is one of the reasons why he actually got into the A tier. So congrats, Clown, you are an A tier player. Next up in tier A, we have the Lesion. And basically, his first perk is called Discordance. And basically, what that is anytime two survivors are working on the same gen, the gen's aura is highlighted yellow for 8 seconds. This could be very useful because you can stop gen rushing. Well, you can kind of stop gen rushing, but you can also stop people thinking, oh, let's just team up and constantly get these done, and these done. Because now you're constantly going to be spotted for 8 seconds because you guys think you're cool. You survivors, you know who I'm talking about. It's all you. It's all y'all. But yeah, really good Discordance perk. Highly like it. And then next up, we have Mad Grit. While carrying a survivor, you suffer no cooldown for missed basic attacks, and successfully hitting another survivor with a basic attack will pause the carried survivor's wiggle timer for 2 seconds. To be honest, for people like me who seem to, as killers who always get like the four-man squads who are always in a group and like in a party who constantly think they're gonna body block. This is really great because not only are you all probably gonna get down if you keep doing this, you're gonna be tagging people up while that timer keeps stopping for an extra 2 seconds. It's very useful. It can be very annoying for survivors, and then they'll eventually learn to stop doing that, hopefully. But yeah, I love Mad Grit. Then next up, we have Iron Maiden. You open lockers 30% faster. Survivors who leave lockers suffer the exposed status effect for 15 seconds, and their location is revealed for 4 seconds. You know, a lot of people said, well, you know, the Iron Maiden is probably one of the perks that probably shouldn't be a B, but the reason what makes Lesion an A in terms of his perks are the fact that there is no meter range. It goes throughout the map, and that's what I love about Legion's perks. It goes throughout the map, and it is super useful because literally you have the whole trial at your disposal because there is no cap for your meter range. You'll just know. So for that, gotta love it. That's why Lesion is an A in my book. So last but not least, but the killer getting the A plus for the best trio perks of base killer perks, it is going to be none other than the A plus winning the Nurse. And here's the reason why. We'll go through all three of her perks. All right. Number 1, a nurse's calling. The auras of survivors who are healing or being healed are revealed to you when they are within a 20-meter range. This is awesome. Those 20 meters, I mean, it stops people from constantly healing. It kind of fits into like her theme, you know, the nurse. Kind of get like the pun there. But this perk is perfect. And I literally have no complaints about this. I mean, it's a great perk. It stops people from healing each other or healing themselves. They kind of, you know, constantly had some like worry, like, oh my god, if I heal myself, she's probably going to come up behind me, and yikes. Then next up we have thanatophobia. I'm pretty sure I said that wrong. I do apologize again, but hey, I'm trying. For each injured, dying, or hooked survivor, all survivors receive a penalty of 3% to a max of 12% to repair, heal, or sabotage. Basically means you're just messing with these survivors consistently. So if you have all 4 people injured and they're not healing themselves, they're too scared that you're going to come and find them within that 20-meter range, guess what? Now they have a max 12% penalty, which is awesome, to basically do anything to repair, heal, or sabotage, which is great. Then next up, we have Strider. The breathing of survivors in pain is 25% louder, and the regular breathing is 0% louder. To be honest, this is actually a really good starter perk. It's one of the only perks I was like, but it was still good because that means if they're in pain, they're 1/4 louder than they would have been originally. Which means they're going to be more audible to you. Which means you're going to be able to find them pretty easily, especially if they're going to be they're going to be trying to heal themselves, or if they're already injured, they're going to be missing. They're going to be longer to take on the generator. They're more vulnerable all the way around. So for that reason, the nurse gets an A+ in this. Congratulations, the nurse is the top in this. Let's go through the recap for Tier A. So to recap Tier A, we have got the Cannibal, the Lesion, the Clown, and then last but not least, the killer getting the A+ for being the best in this episode, the Nurse. And with that being said, guys, if you guys would like, I actually recently opened up a Patreon account, and if you want to support me in more than just one way, definitely I'll put a link down there for my Patreon. If you guys want to be that awesome, go right ahead. Would be greatly appreciated, of course. And on top of that, with that being said, everybody, please do chainsaw that subscribe button, elbow drop that like button, and I look forward to seeing you back in the next episode we have for Dead by Daylight. We'll be uploading some wrestling stuff next week. I look forward to seeing you guys again. Stay off the leg, everybody. Subscribe to BVTV.